presentation on alcohol abuse in families, and it was in a class I shared with Ola, and she liked it and asked me to come and do it again. So I've done it a little bit different, so that hopefully it's a little more relevant, but still fun. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Let me know if you can't hear me. So a little background. For decades, large numbers of individuals have been moving to the U.S. due to threatening or emergency situations in their countries of origin. The Refugee Act of 1980 defined a refugee as a person who cannot return to their home because of a well-founded fear of persecution on the basis of race, religion, nationality, membership in a particular social group, or political opinion. Refugees are often forced to flee suddenly and may not have the opportunity to make preparations to leave their country. And American policy concerning immigration and refugees has long been characterized by ambivalence and conflicting goals. All right, so easier to do it this way. Okay, so immigrant children and youth remain an invisible population in public discussions about immigration and their impact on market laborers and how they contribute to the changing ethnic makeup of the United States. Experiences of immigrants and refugees have differed widely due to their national origins, ages, locales, family employment status, time in the U.S., and history in which they arrived. Many new immigrants experience tension between the cultural norms of their home country and the popular cultural norms in the U.S. They find their traditional values and behaviors are often undermined or not sanctioned in the U.S. Today, issues of equality, fairness, exploitation, discrimination, stress, communication, cultural issues, and mental health still face immigrants and refugees. Immigrant children may internalize a new set of cultural norms, a new language, all right, here we go. Let's see, a new language and a new set of value systems more quickly than their parents. These different rates of adjustment can become a source of conflict and stress in immigrant families. As immigrant adolescents begin to think and act more independently, they increasingly depend on and seek advice from non-kin such as teachers, friends, and school counselors. The exposure to new norms may weaken the social controls of the society of origin. This increasing influence may accelerate their adoption of what these youth perceive as mainstream behaviors and cultural norms, kind of modeling what they see in the media. And the youth's quicker adjustment may lead to feelings of alienation and tension between parents and children. Often exasperating conflict is the need for immigrant youth to begin services as translating for the parent, which can result in a dependence that can threaten parental authority. For many immigrant refugee youth, the gradual weakening of parental control and changes in family structure is often accompanied by increased peer influence. Oh, thank you. No problem. Okay, so the next slide. All right, so we've got adolescence and drinking. For adolescents, social learning can contribute to the onset of substance abuse and these behaviors. Interestingly enough, recent immigrant youth actually have lower alcohol and marijuana use compared to youth based on their own age. But these immigrants are less likely to have parental support that avoids risky behaviors and most likely to experience peer pressure and engage in risky behaviors. Okay. These youth also often lack the confidence to refuse substance abuse and are more susceptible to peer pressure. And evidence suggests that drinking and drug use frequently increases as acculturation increases into future generations. All right, so adults and drinking. The experience of immigration is often disorientating and stressful. Also, the fact that males often migrate first and wait for their families to join them can add to stress. Drinking can be seen as a way to self-medicate, to reduce the levels of depression and anxiety. This anxiety may be caused by immigration limbo and the deterioration of mental health. By some, may be elements contributing to higher rates of alcoholism. Research consistently shows that foreign-born individuals initially demonstrate better mental health and physical health than their native-born counterparts. This is consistent across socioeconomic status and education levels. However, with increased time in the U.S., the health status of these foreign-born individuals tends to deteriorate. The host society shapes alcohol-related practices of immigrants. Studies have reported connections between substance abuse and measures of acculturation stress, like loneliness, social isolation, family separation, and economic worries. Racial, ethnic discrimination and prejudice are main stressors linked to increased substance use, as well as traumatic events, like the death of a family member or job loss. Past research indicates that when most immigrants enter the U.S., their risk for alcohol abuse is lower than the native populations, even among people of the same ethnicity. All right, however, the longer immigrants stay in the U.S., the greater is their risk of alcohol abuse. While newcomers were found to be less likely to engage in substance abuse than U.S.-born populations, but those who had been in the United States for 10 years or longer no longer reported a significant difference between native-born people and people who immigrate here. There are several different models that have been developed to explain the use of alcohol use and drug use by immigrant and refugees. According to the multicultural perspective, alcohol use often occurs worldwide, and migrants may take their drinking habits with them. For example, some cultures perceive alcohol as sacred and essential, while others may view it as destructive. And in some cultures, drinking with family members is a social event, and refusal to drink can be viewed as a rejection of other family members. All right, acculturation stress. Another risk factor for alcohol abuse is acculturation stress. And that's the process between two cultural groups which results in numerous changes in both groups, but has a greater impact on the non-dominant group. And this may be a powerful factor in alcohol abuse among immigrants when the protective factors of the original cultures, such as families and elders, are absent from the new country. The acculturation stress model states that alcohol and other drugs drug use can be the result of the immigration experience itself because of the stress from cultural conflict and the lack of social and economic resources. Another model is the learning perspective model that states that the average level of drinking is higher in the host country than in the country of origin, then through acculturation and assimilation, the average immigrant will begin to drink more than they did in their own old culture. And as newcomers adopt the customs of their host country, their patterns of alcohol use and drug use may also begin to reflect those of the new location. Another model is the intercultural diversity model, which states that there is a wide variety of alcohol and drug use patterns that exist within different groups, and that it is possible that the people continue the alcohol and other drug patterns that they had in their country of origin. Okay, so now on to some interventions. Since substance abuse often emerges in response to stressors, any assessments must be able to identify symptoms of culture shock, emotional distress, adjustment problems, fear, and identity confusion. Parents must also be involved in substance abuse prevention and interventions for immigrant youth. And interventions must be also respond to family structure, including looking at differences in cultural parenting practices and strategies, parent-child expectations, strategies for parental monitoring, and discipline should all be taken into account. The recent literature on substance abuse is marked by increasing support for the use of evidence-based practices. These practices have been evaluated and found to be consistently effective at decreasing substance abuse risk and behaviors while increasing protective factors. However, these practices are often normed on Caucasian middle-class participants. And most programs have superficial coverage of cultural variables and may be culturally blind to the needs of ethnic and racial minority recipients. Prevention and treatment programs for immigrants may assume that all their staff possess the attitudes, knowledge, and skills necessary, but they may not. So there's important things to take into consideration. To encourage the use of services and programs, these programs must be culturally tailored to reflect the needs and perspective of larger audiences. Incorporating images of people, places, food, and other cultural elements into the information material enhances cultural sensitivity. Providing instruction and information in the languages that recipients understand is also important. Translations of text-based information, native speakers, and interpretation services are necessary to make prevention programs accessible to people who aren't fluent in English. How families can help. Family structure and control can provide a protective buffer against stresses associated with migration and discourage children from adopting deviant behaviors modeled in their new society. Since parental control often becomes threatened with time in the U.S., parents should monitor their children's behavior from the onset and establish the standards of acceptable behavior within the new environment. Adolescents who placed importance on their parents' drug messages tended not to use drugs. So the importance of parents telling their kids and reinforcing that that's not an okay behavior. Barriers to service. Immigrants and refugees may utilize substance abuse services less than their native-born populations due to cultural and socio-political barriers. They may not seek services because they're unfamiliar with the system, do not know how to access the services, or are unaware that the service exists. The cultural stigma attached to substance abuse programs may prevent immigrants and families from seeking services. And in many cultures, emotional problems and substance abuse problems are considered to be dishonorable. There may be fear to accessing services, and if people are here illegally, they may fear deportation. So this next part is all about the criteria for alcohol abuse disorders. It's a lot of words. Let's see. So at least 2 of these need to be present in the last 12 months. That alcohol is needed over a longer period of time. That's when people build up a tolerance. There is a persistent desire and unsuccessful efforts to cut down on use. Thinking, I'll never drink again, I promise, this won't ever happen again. A great deal of time is spent on activities to obtain alcohol or to recover from alcohol abuse. That could be a hangover. There's a craving or strong desire to use alcohol. There are recurrent results and failures to fulfill obligations at home, school, or work. There's continued alcohol use despite having persistent or recurring social or interpersonal problems caused by the alcohol. Important occupational or recreational activities are given up or missed. like missing kids' school activities or missing work. Recurrent alcohol use in situations that are dangerous, like drinking and driving. And alcohol use is continued despite knowledge of having physical problems related to alcohol. And then there's tolerance. Tolerance is defined as an increased need for the same amount of alcohol to obtain the same results. A diminished effect with continued use of the same amount of alcohol. And withdrawal is characteristic withdrawal syndrome for alcohol, where there is a physical withdrawal and a physical need to have more alcohol. And then there are specifiers. Moderate, mild, moderate, and severe. That just depends on how many symptoms are present. And then the controlled environment, that's when alcohol is restricted, like in a treatment facility. And then the next part is alcohol intoxication. This would be something that would be diagnosed if somebody came into an ER or in a jail, depending on what their facilities are. Okay. You want to see with the next one? Yep. These are some of the symptoms of alcohol intoxication: slurred speech, incoordination, unsteady gait. I have no idea how to pronounce number 4. That would be where the eyes are having a hard time focusing and moving around. The inability to remember things, stupor or coma, and these symptoms are not better accounted for by a medical condition. And then alcohol withdrawal. There are two criteria, or there's two different. There's with hallucinations and without hallucinations. And alcohol withdrawal can only happen in moderate or severe alcohol use, not mild. So this is different than a hangover. This is where people actually have seizures and die. So the next one is about alcohol withdrawal. This is also diagnosable. This is having any two of the following. You've got hyperactivity, tremors, insomnia, nausea and vomiting, hallucinations, agitation, anxiety, and DTs, which are seizures. Okay, and then there's also a specifier. The next one. Yep, please. The next one talks about if there's seizures or not. And about half of the people with alcoholism will develop withdrawal symptoms upon the reduction of their use. Of these, 3 to 5% develop DTs or have seizures. And alcohol withdrawal for serious use is actually really dangerous. And then the next one is unspecified alcohol-related disorder. This is something that doesn't fit the criteria for the other ones. This could be binge drinking. And this is when drinking is affecting other parts of people's lives. It's not just people going out and having a few drinks. It's when the drinking is impacting their ability to hold on a job, to have family relationships, to go to school, to be able to function in a lot of different areas of their life. Okay, so the next one, can you play it? It's a YouTube video. And this is interesting facts about alcohol. And it goes really fast, and I wish there was a way to slow it down. Sorry, it goes too fast. Hold on. You can help.